Hi all, welcome to Skillrary. In today's session, we are going to discuss about virtualization. Once we cover the basics of virtualization, we will move on to understand VMware and then install VMware Workstation Player and then probably download one of the Windows image from Microsoft website and then try to create a VMware image and VM, that is virtual machine, on a Windows operating system. So let's start with today's session, virtualization. What do you think virtualization is? Virtualization is the process of actually running a virtual instance of computer system in a layer abstracted from actual hardware. When you look at a definition like this, you tend to get confused. Okay, so looking at the slide that I have here, right, virtualization is the ability to run multiple operating systems on a single physical system and share the underlying hardware. Meaning, you would have a laptop or you would have a desktop. On that, you already have an operating system. Without an operating system, you would anyways not be able to use any computer, right? Without an operating system on top of a computer, right, the computer itself is useless. So once you have this operating system, in case if you want to use another operating system, like I'm using Windows operating system, on top of this, if I actually want to use Linux, right, in a secluded, secured environment, then probably I would look at a solution which is virtualization. Okay, and virtualization is the process by which one computer hosts the appearance of many computers. Meaning, on one computer, I can create images of multiple computers virtually. We have a computer which is a hardware on top of which I will have an operating system. Inside that, I will create virtual operating systems and virtual machines, right, which will give you an experience of an actual computer that you can use. Okay, so virtualization is used to improve IT throughput and costs by using physical resources as a pool from which virtual resources can be allocated. Okay, so virtualization most commonly refers, right, to running multiple operating system on a computer system. Okay, and simultaneously, it's not that you run multiple operating systems sequentially one after the other. No, you run it simultaneously, parallelly. It all depends on how much CPU or memory you have on one operating system. We will go ahead and then create such an operating system or a virtual machine later during this course, right? But however, let us understand the basics of it before we jump into hands-on. Okay, and these operating systems can actually appear as if they are on their own and as if they are on their own dedicated machines. Okay, where the operating system, libraries, and other programs are actually unique to the guest virtualized system and unconnected to the host operating system which sits below it. Okay, and there are many reasons why we actually prefer or use virtualization, right? To desktop users like you or anybody else who's only used to have desktop experience to access some of the website, the most common use is able to run application meant for different operating systems without actually having to switch computers or reboot into a different system, right? Like if you're using a Windows operating system, if there is a program which can run only on Macintosh or Mac operating system, then you can actually create a virtual operating system or virtual machine on your system and start using it as if you're actually using a Mac operating system. Fair enough, right? So for administrators, right, for administrators in IT, right, administrators of servers itself, virtualization also refers or offers to the ability to run different operating systems. But perhaps more importantly, it offers a way to segment a large system into many smaller parts. Like if I have a huge operating system, not operating system, huge machine with, say, 50 CPUs and then hundreds and hundreds of gigabytes of memory, I can actually split that machine into multiple smaller parts, and then I can start using each of these parts, which I call it as virtual machines, right, as a separate server itself, wherein you get to actually operate on a virtualized environment as a segregated or a separate environment. It gives you that feel. Okay, so in this case, when I actually cut a particular server virtually into multiple pieces, it actually allows the server to be used more efficiently by number of different users or applications with different needs. So this concept also allows for isolation, keeping programs running inside a virtual machine, safe from other processes taking place in other virtual machines, but on the same host. Okay, so that is what is virtualization. When you look at virtualization, there are two major categories. One is virtual machine, and the latest buzzword is container. So in this course, we will not discuss about container nor the difference between virtualization and containers. It is always good to have the knowledge of virtualization before we get into containers. So if you want to know more about containers, please watch our subsequent videos on virtualization with respect to containers and Dockers. Okay. However, for now, restricting this discussion only to virtual machines, we will go ahead and then discuss further on virtual machines. A virtual machine, as we discussed, or virtualization in terms of virtual machine, is an isolated runtime environment which would have a guest OS. As we discussed, right, you would have a physical computer. On top of it, you will have an operating system. On top of that operating system, you will have your virtual machines, which will have its own operating system and will give you an isolated environment and a virtual feel of an actual usage of a computer. Okay, so multiple virtual systems can run on a single physical system, as you see in the diagram that we have. But one thing that is missing here is an operating system which is actually sitting on top of this physical box. Here in this diagram, it says virtualization platform. It mentions Zen, KVM, VMware. These are all the products that we have which we can use. Okay, so why is that there is no operating system? And what if I have an operating system? What is that called as? Is what we are going to look at next. Okay, so each virtual machine, okay, when you create it, you should have something called as hypervisor. Hypervisor is actually a program for creating and running virtual machines. It is the base library, or it is the base for any virtual operating system or virtual machine. It is also called as a virtual machine manager or monitor. Hypervisors have been traditionally been split into two classes, right? One are bare metal hypervisors that run guest virtual machines directly on a system hardware, essentially behaving as an operating system, right? Second type of hypervisors are hosted hypervisors, which behave more like traditional applications that can be started and stopped like a normal program. In modern systems, actually, this split is less prevalent, and particularly with systems like KVM. KVM is a short for kernel-based virtual machines, is a part of Linux kernel, and that can run virtual machines directly. Although you can still use a system running KVM virtual machines as a normal computer itself. Okay, and when you have defined hypervisors, it is better to know the virtual machine, right, that we just discussed before this. A virtual machine now is a machine which is emulated equivalent of a computer system that runs on top of another system. And this system can be either on a hypervisor, right, on a hypervisor which is a bare metal hypervisor, or on a hosted hypervisor, okay, and each guest operating system which sits on top of this, right, appears to have the host processor, memory, and other resources all to itself. It appears there are configurations. Once we start looking at an example, you will understand as to what this hypervisor is, and then how it functions, and what configurations we have to actually manage a virtual machine, right? So let's move on and see the benefits of virtualization. Virtualization, as it says, it creates a virtual environment, right? It is actually used for sharing resources on a particular computer. Okay, the first and foremost benefit of virtualization is actually isolation. Virtual machines are actually isolated from each other as if they are physically separated. That is the reason why we have virtualization in the first place. There's something called as encapsulation, right? If you have known object-oriented concept, encapsulation is one of the concepts that you need to actually secure the data. Virtual machines encapsulate a complete computing environment, meaning whatever you do inside it, it is actually stored inside it, and you don't have access to the outside virtual machines or the outside operating system unless you configure it to actually have the access, from both outside as well as inside, by probably, for example, sharing a folder between two different operating systems. So there is something called as hardware independence, right? If you have not heard of it, It is having hardware resources, actually allocated to a particular machine, and then it does not share the same hardware resource with the other operating system. Virtual machines run independently of underlying hardware. Okay, whatever is the hardware, it can run on top of it. Basically, you just have to allocate some part of it, and then once it takes over that part of the hardware, it wouldn't release as long as, right, it is not being used. It is definitely portable, right? The next benefit is actually portability. It is definitely portable. Virtual machines can be migrated between different hosts. It is so simple. Once you create a virtual machine, you can actually transfer them between different hosts. Okay, and there are many other use cases once you start working with VMware. To work and start proceeding further, right, you also need to understand virtualization in cloud computing. Cloud computing takes virtualization actually another step further. You don't need to actually own a hardware in cloud computing. Let us not get into cloud computing, making sure that you guys already know about cloud computing. If you have not, then please visit skillrary.com for more courses, or to our social websites, or to our blog to understand cloud computing. Okay, there are many articles which are written by many scholars who contribute to Skillrary's blog, and there are videos like this which are available for free on YouTube. Please subscribe to our channels so that you keep getting about the updates on newer videos on our channel, on YouTube channel. You can just search for Skillrary on YouTube and you will get to it. Okay, and subscribe to all other social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, to get updates, frequent updates on different courses which are available for free, for a cost, or even assessments, certifications which are there for free. Right, you get notified through these media or through these platforms. Okay, so in cloud computing, resources are actually rented as needed from the cloud. Okay, various providers allow creating virtual servers. Choose the OS and software for each instance that you want to. The chosen OS will run on a large server farm, right, which is closely related to virtualization, and can instantiate more virtual servers or shut down existing ones within minutes, right? And obviously, you have to pay for it, and you get billed only for what you use. So this is where virtualization is actually being used to a larger extent. Okay, so you got to know the history of virtualization and its development and how it started. It all started with respect to IBM M44X machines in 1965. These were called as paging systems. Okay, so you had a large system, and then you could actually bifurcate them to create different servers on top of an IBM machine. It then moved on to create System 36067, which was a virtual memory hardware system. And in 1967, IBM came up with something called as CP40 and CP67, which was time-sharing virtual machines. In 1972, IBM created something called as IBM VM370, which can run VM under a VM. That means you can have a virtual machine inside a virtual machine. In 1977, there is Connectic's first version of virtual PC was released. In 1998, VMware US had a patent. In 1999, right, VMware Virtual Platform for Intel IA32 architecture was formed. Right, in 2000, IBM released ZVM. If you see, virtualization is not a concept of today; it is actually a concept of ages before the computer were actually born. Okay, virtualization was already there. Not computers were born before even the internet existed. Okay, so in 2001, Connectix Virtual PC for Windows was given. In 2003, Microsoft acquired Connectix. It is now Connectix is actually Microsoft. And 2003, EMC acquired VMware, right? And 2003 again, Veritas acquired Egecent. And in 2005, HP integrate, HP had Integrity Virtual Machines, and thereby, the progress grew faster, right? Intel had VTs, AMD VTs, and we also came up with Zen machines and Zen processors, as well as Zen virtual machines. In 2006, we got to see VMware servers. In 2006, we had virtual PCs, and 2006 HP came up with IVM version 2.0, and in 2006 again we had virtual Iron 3.1. In 2007, Innotech Virtual Box was available. 2007, KVM was available in Linux kernel and Zen in Linux kernel in 2007. There are many other applications or softwares which are there, like Sun VirtualBox, which is now Oracle VirtualBox, right, which is another alternative for VMware Workstation Player. We will see those softwares later, but let us see as to what kind or what types of virtualizations are available in the market. Okay, there are different types of virtualizations, right? There is desktop virtualization, there is server virtualization, there is network virtualization, storage, as well as application virtualization. Okay, when you look at these different types of virtualizations, what you understand or what you can make out of these virtualizations are that virtualization is actually possible at different levels. Application virtualization is something wherein you will have a virtual application running instead of an actual application. It is done at the application level. There is no reason for us to actually look at the hardware or the operating system. Here you would actually get a virtual application, which is actually replacement for an actual application, wherein you get to see and feel the same application, probably with lesser features. Okay, but when you look at storage virtualization, it is the pooling of physical storage from multiple network storage devices into what appears to be a single storage device that is actually managed from a central console. Storage virtualization is commonly used in storage areas, right? When I say storage areas, it is actually storage area network SANs. Okay, and when it comes to network virtualization, it is a method of combining the available resource in a network by actually splitting up the available bandwidth into different channels. Each of these channels, which is actually an independent channel, and compared to other channels that we have, right, and is independent to others and can be assigned to a specific server or to a device in real time. Okay, and when you talk about server virtualization is the making of server resources like processors, RAM, operating system, etc. from server users. The intention of server virtualization is to increase the resource sharing and reduce the burden and complexity. Okay, and when you look at desktop virtualization, it is something which we are going to do now in today's session, right? Wherein when you look at desktop virtualization, you already have a machine computer. On top of it, you already have an operating system, on top of which you are going to create multiple virtual machines, wherein if you actually want to access some programs which cannot work on local machines, we would suggest you create a virtual machine and start accessing it instead of having a multi-boot operating system. Desktop virtualization also has multiple other usages. One usage being to protect yourself from hackers, wherein you can actually create a secluded environment. And if you want to try some softwares or try out different applications, right, I would not suggest you to do that on your base operating system. Create a virtualized environment. Inside that virtualized environment, you start installing any application that you want, which will not have any access to your host operating system, as well as the files or details or documents which are stored on the host operating system. Thereby, even if somebody infects or even if you get affected by malware, you will still be protected, right, on your base operating system. Okay, this is what I suggest for youngsters who want to actually do a lot of experimentation, to actually start with desktop virtualization. And once you probably are part of an IT industry or an administration group in a company, you would anyways get to experience the other virtualizations. Okay, so in desktop virtualization, right, you have VMware Workstation, right? You can have a VMware Workstation wherein you have this workstation environment. You can create VMs, okay, on a local machine. You can create images of these operating system that you have. Okay, you have Microsoft Virtual PC, Citrix Zen Desktop, right, which is a centralized one. Okay, so if you want to look at and understand, right, architecture of desktop virtualization, you will have a hardware that you see here, right, on top of which you will have a host operating system, and you will have a software that would give you virtual machine capability. Usually it is something that we have already discussed, and that we call it as a hypervisor. Okay, on top of which you will start creating different virtual machines. You will start creating different virtual machines. Okay, so available softwares that we have for virtual machines is Listech, Dizon, Stratodesk, VirtualBox from Oracle, VMware, Microsoft, right? Zen Desktop from Citrix as well. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's go back, install our first VMware, player, not to create a virtual machine, right? You will have to wait for other videos to create virtual machines on your own. But for now, what we will do is we will go ahead and then create a virtual environment to actually initiate an operating system inside your local host. Okay, for this, let me go back and for this, let me open up my browser. Let me go to vmware.com. Okay, in VMware, you have to go to products. In products, there's something called as desktop and app virtualization. You have to go to VMware, and in VMware, you have to go to products. Under products, go to personal desktop. In personal desktop, if you have a Mac operating system onto which you want to install this, use Fusion for Mac, or if you actually want to use it on a Windows operating system, you can just use Workstation Player. Workstation Player is free for use, so I would suggest go for Workstation Player instead of Workstation Pro. Okay, let me click on this Workstation Player. So if you see here, you have this download option. So get into the operating system that you want to download this Workstation Player for. My operating system is a Windows operating system. How do I know whether it is 64-bit or 32-bit? All you have to do is get to your Windows Explorer and right click on this PC or your PC, go to properties. In this property, you would know I have about 12 GB of operating system RAM, and I have 64-bit x64 based dual core processor on my machine. Okay, so that means I have to download a 64-bit operating system. So in here, if you see, I have an option only to download a 64-bit operating systems. Okay, so let me download this. It's about 138 MB. It will not take much time to download. Great, my VMware Player downloader is already downloaded. Let me click on it. Yes, I would like to continue my installation. Workstation Player 15.5 is the version, which is the latest version as on today. Okay, on this particular screen, what I'll do is let me minimize my browser and my presentation as well. Okay, so once we have minimized it, now I have the player setup ready. Let me click on next. I would say I accept this agreement. Okay, a reboot will be required to use this feature. This feature requires 10 MB on your host. I would want to have the enhanced keyboard driver as well, so I would not restart it. So it says check for product updates on startup. Okay, yes, let it check. Join VMware. I don't want to provide this detail at this point in time. Create a desktop shortcut, start menu, programs folder. Yes, say next. And now it's ready. Just click on install and relax till the time it gets installed. It'll hardly take few minutes. You have to keep one thing in your mind while you're installing VMware. VMware can be installed on laptops which has hardware virtualization turned on. Okay, so what do you mean by hardware virtualization? If your system is capable of actually handling virtual machines on your host operating system, it will surely have an option in your BIOS setting. Please visit skillrary.com and search for BIOS settings for virtualization. You would know how to make this change in your BIOS. Okay, since this is already done, right, you can wait for another video to change or make changes to your hardware virtualization settings in your BIOS. Okay, that should be turned on. Mostly whatever systems that you buy as on today, the newer ones, right, in last 2 years, most of the PCs, they come with hardware virtualization. So you can, if you bought a PC recently, then you can be sure that you already have hardware virtualization. It is just that you would not have turned it on. Okay, so please visit Skillrary or watch another video on our YouTube channel on how to actually enable hardware virtualization. So looks like our setup is done. Let me click on finish. It says you must restart your operating system for the configuration changes made to VMware Player to take effect. Click yes to restart or no if you plan to manually restart. I would say no at this point in time. I don't want to restart, right? I have a couple of more things that I have to tell you before I take a restart. Okay, right now your virtual machine is installed on your operating system. To run this virtual machine, you would need something called as ISOs. You would need an image for your operating system. ISO is an international standard organization extension for an operating system image. So on this virtual machine that I have installed, we would go ahead and then probably create a virtual environment of Windows itself. I would also tell you in later videos on as to how to create a virtual machine for a Linux operating system. Okay, but before that, let us first go ahead and see as to what is required to create a virtual environment for Microsoft Windows. First things first, you have to download the virtual image from Microsoft website. Okay, it is a genuine copy that you would receive, right? So you can use it as long as you want it, but it would not have the registration key. And if you want to, you can go ahead and then buy one. Okay, so let me go to my browser, go to Microsoft ISO image. When I say Microsoft ISO image, it says download Windows 10 disk image. Okay, it's pretty easy. You can go to Microsoft website and then search for it. It is better. This is much easier, and then you would get access to it. Let me click on this link. Before downloading it, you have to actually uh, log into it. Let's see why whenever it asks me to download. So in here it says Windows 10 May 2019 update. It is not an update that I need, right? I would need to create Windows 10 installation media. This is what I need. Okay, so this is what I need. To get this, you have to actually download a tool. Okay, so let me download this tool. To actually do this, you have to actually have Windows 10 ISO, right? You don't have to go for the update, nor you have to go for create Windows 10 installation media. There's something called as more download options. Looking at this, right, you don't have to update, right? You have to actually create Windows 10 installation media. Using this tool, you can actually create an ISO file. So you have to download this particular tool, right? So it's a very small tool. Let it get downloaded. Yes, it is downloaded. Let me click on this. Yes, it's a Microsoft Windows one, so don't worry. Go ahead and then install it. It says getting a few things ready. Let's wait for it. Okay, I would accept the license here. Don't worry if it is taking time. It is actually trying to connect to Microsoft site to make sure that the Windows that you're using, whether it is legal or it is performing regular checks and balances. And all you have to do this is only one time. If your friend has already done it, you can probably borrow the ISO file and then you can start using it. Okay, so you get two options: upgrade this PC now, or you can create installation media. So our intention is to create installation media. Let me select this and click on next. So I would want it for 64-bit operating system, Windows 10, language is US. There's no option to actually change this. So it says use this recommended options. I can remove this and then change it as well. So it doesn't matter. So I don't want to change anything. Okay. So I would say next. So it says choose which media to use. USB flash drive. It needs to be at least 8 GB. No, I don't need it. I will create an ISO file. Right, you will need to burn this ISO. I don't have to burn this. We will see how to use this little later, but let's continue with our step. So it is asking you to save it on your system, right? I would go ahead and then save it in my documents folder, right? I would say Windows x64, just for me to understand that it's a 64-bit operating system ISO that I'm creating. I say save. It shows the progress. All you have to do is wait for it to complete 100%, and once it is done, right, you're free to go and access your virtual machine in your documents folder. So it is yet to create. Let's wait for it. You would have seen that creation of Windows 10 media goes through different stages. Okay, so it first makes sure that it creates it as a separate copy for you. Once it creates it, and then you will get an option to download, and then it starts saving it in your system. It goes through different stages, so you have to wait for little long than you expect, thinking that it is a virtual machine and it is very simple and faster. So you have to wait for at least 15-20 minutes, or sometimes if your internet speed is slower, or if your machine is not capable, or if your machine has low resources, you have to even wait for an hour. Okay, it all depends on how much resources you have on your system. So it says under C user method, documents, Windows x64.iso, and you can burn it onto a DVD and then start installing it on any other new uh, you know uh, computer, right, as a new operating system. But we would not need anything. I'm just going to go ahead and then say click on finish. So there are a couple of steps that it takes to clean up the temporary files that it has, and now we are done with it. Let's me go back to the document folder, and you would see Windows x64 folder, and if you see here, it is around 4 GB. Let me look at the property. It says 3.93 GB, right, which is 4228121160 bytes. Okay, so we are done with downloading the image. The next step that you have to do is, using this image, you have to create your virtual machine on VMware Workstation Player. Okay, let me open this VMware Workstation Player. Since I have not restarted it, it may ask me or force me to restart, but let me take a chance and then see if I'm able to use this. So gives me an option saying that use VMware Workstation 15 player for free for non-commercial use. Yes, it is definitely for non-commercial. I'm not going to make business out of this and then have applications running on top of this. It is only for education purpose that this video is being created. So let me choose it to be used for free non-commercial use. Continue. Thank you for using. Finish. This is where you have. So this is your home console of VMware. You have multiple options. You can create new virtual machine or open an existing machine, download a virtual appliance, or go to preferences. So right now, okay, it gave me something wherein it says the following software is available for download. uh, I can skip this version and then say remind me later. Let me not upgrade this at this point in time. I'll say remind me later. So I was talking about file and then the different options that I have, or on the home screen I have create new virtual machine or open another one, or upgrade to Workstation Pro. I don't need to get to Workstation Pro. I can continue using this, or you can also continue using this. Don't worry about upgrading to Workstation Pro, which is a paid version. Okay, so click on create a new virtual machine. When you choose to create a new virtual machine, you're supposed to actually given the input for the ISO. Okay, let me browse, go to documents, select Windows x64, which has just been downloaded. Okay, uh, so I've selected this. Click on next. Don't say I will install the operating system later, right? It will create a virtual machine with a blank hard disk, which is of no use whatsoever, right? So let me click on next and continue my installation. It is asking me for a name for this virtual machine, right? I would say Windows x64 for Skillrary. Okay, so let me say next. It has a default location in which it is getting stored. If you want to change this, you can change it, or you can let this be on your C drive itself, okay, in documents virtual machines. So since this is a test version, let me go ahead, or if you have another disk or a D drive or a E drive or whatever drive, it is better if you can store this in those drives. Okay, let me click on next. It is asking me for the maximum size. Whatever is the default, you just let it be. It will ask you to store virtual disk as a single file or split virtual disk into multiple files. It is up to you. It gives you or tells you as to what this is all about. Splitting the disk makes it easier to move the virtual machine to another computer because it has multiple files. So since I don't have any intention to move it to other servers, I would keep it as a single file. Okay, let me click on next. So here it gives you the snapshot of what is that you're going to create, where is that you're going to create in this location, version of workstation, version of operating system, right, including the hard disk, what is the memory it has allocated to it, network adapter, it is NAT, so other devices like 2 core and etc with the sound card that you have. I can customize the hardware, but I would go ahead and click on finish. Once I click on finish, we have to wait for the operating system to get installed, and I have chosen this option, say stating power on this virtual machine after creation. Let me click on finish and then get back to my relaxed state till the time this gets created. No, I cannot get back to relaxed state now because it'll, while installing the operating system, it'll ask you for inputs. Let me give that inputs and then go back to my hibernate mode. So it is first creating the disk, as you see. the disk is created. Now it will use the same disk. Basically, it will try to load the ISO file which we have given as an input to make sure that it creates a virtual disk, and then it will give a feeling as if you have a virtual disk inserted inside your CD tray, right? And then continue with it. Okay, here it says the following software is available: VMware Tools for Windows Vista and later versions. You say, would you like to install it? Right? You also read downloading and installing VMware Tools is required to enable advanced features of your virtual machine. In case if you want to start copying files from your local host to your virtual machine, or if you want to have multiple other features like network changes and couple of other things, it is always better to go with installing VMware Tools. Okay, let me say download and install. Don't worry about Windows Vista and later. It is Windows Vista and later, so it is applicable for Windows 10 as well. Okay, I see something called as EFI network timeout. Let this update complete and then we will see what the problem is with respect to EFI network. It is changing as and when the VMware tool is getting installed. The exception is gone and then it is giving me a boot message. The VMware product requires administrator privilege. Yes, I will say yes. I don't have any issues. Okay, so here it gives me different options, right? I would say continue using the default, right? I would say select. You just have to click on it and then you have to select one of it. Since you're doing it for the first time, let me choose the CD-ROM drive to boot it. It is now booting the hardware that we have. So if I'm trying to move my mouse here, and then when it is inside this, it would not. You can always use Control Alt to get the control of the mouse back. Okay, so here it says English United States, whatever it is, keyboard input default. I would click on next and then I would say install now. It is asking me for a product key. I don't have a product key. I've just downloaded this. As it says that Microsoft Windows has given this for you to practice and use it as a virtual virtual machine image. I would say I don't have a product key, right? And it is asking me to choose the version that I need. I'm okay with any of the version. It is just for practice. You can choose anything that you want as per your need. I would say Windows 10 home version. Okay, I can even go with Windows 10 Pro, which would probably take more space to install and then little more time because it is going to install required libraries for a Pro machine. Okay, so it is either ways. I can choose this or this, right? So it is one and the same because we are just trying to test it. Okay, home version, select next, just to make sure that the installation completes faster. I say I accept the license terms and click on next. It says which type of installation you want. It's an upgrade. It is definitely not an upgrade. Install Windows only. The file settings and application aren't moved to Windows with this option. If you want to make changes to partition drive, start the computer using installation disk, we would recommend this. So this upgrade is something which I don't need, right? I would select to install the Windows from scratch, custom install. It says hard drive. I've selected this hard drive by default. Okay, click on next. So it has just started with the installation, getting ready for installation 0%. It has to get over with. So now is the time for us to get into hibernate mode and let the installation finish.
Hi there, I'm Cortana, and I'm here to help. A little sign in here, a touch of Wi-Fi there, and we'll have your PC
So the
ready for all you
Cortana
plan to
from
do.
Windows 10 has started.
Use your voice or the keyboard along the way, and
So
if
I
you'd
would go
like
ahead
me
and
to
then
stay
say I
quiet,
finished
just select the little
the
microphone
installation.
icon towards the bottom of your screen. If you need an assistive screen reader, press the Windows, Control, and Enter keys at the same time to turn on narrator. Okay, enough intro. Let's dig in. Your region is set to the United States. Is that right?
I would say yes. Go ahead with it for now.
Your keyboard is set to US. Want to stick with that?
Yeah, I would want to stick with that. Keyboard,
Do you
yes.
also type with another keyboard layout?
I want to skip.
Now we have some important setup to do. Now let's see what's new from Windows.
It would do a couple of configuration as it is required. This is same with respect to all the operating system installation that goes on. In this session, you have actually not only learned about virtualization, we also kind of
Type
installed
your email
VMware,
address or phone number, then
right? And
follow the
then we also
instructions to sign in.
downloaded or
I'll catch
created
up
an
with you once
ISO
that's done.
image, as well as we installed Windows operating system in a virtual environment. So in here, either I can go ahead and then create an account, or just try clicking on next. It wouldn't allow you. It is forcing you to do it. Okay, either create or enter whatever that you have here. You want to create a pin for it. Let me use a pin. I would say okay.
Windows can save your spot in apps, files, and websites, so you can keep doing what you were doing even when you switch devices. Just choose Yes to sync your activities.
So I don't want to do anything. I'm just going to go say no. I'll say do it later. I don't want to do anything else apart from this. Give my phone number, etc.
Want to automatically save files and photos to OneDrive for some added peace of mind?
I'll say next. Trell, I say no. I don't have the license key, so let me say no, move on, and then get over with the installation as early as possible.
Hey, look, that's me, Cortana. Can I have permission to use the info I need to do my best work?
I would say decline.
These are the settings Microsoft recommends. Go ahead and review them and select Accept when you're ready.
So, it all depends on you. I would not want my location, online speech recognition, find my device, diagnostic, because this would all be required for somebody who's using an operating system on a base operating system on a hardware itself. Since this is only a basic version or virtual machine that we are going to have, I'm going to say no to everything and then say accept.
Almost done now. We just need to get a few more things polished up for you, and Windows will be all yours. Looking forward to helping out.
It says it is getting everything ready for you and for me both before we conclude this video. This might take several minutes. Hopefully just this should get through. It gives us welcome to your new version of Windows, and then I see Prime Minister Modi. So close this browser. You are on to your Windows operating system. You can play around with this as you want, as you wish to. Okay, so I don't want to do anything. I can searching for display driver. You can do anything that you want. I can make it, maximized window, or I can even get onto a full screen mode here. Control Alt Enter. If I get into a full screen mode, it is coming like this. I can set it up however I want later to come out of the full screen mode, and then open your Explorer, get inside it, install anything that you want. You have Microsoft Edge, you can have Microsoft Internet Explorer. Okay, search for it, do anything that you want on top of this, and this is how you actually install a Windows operating system on a virtualized environment. If you see here, whatever is the configuration that we have set, that is what you see here. If I get onto my PC, I would see 60 GB is the hard disk space that is given here. And the same settings, if I want to manage, I go to manage VMware virtual machine settings. I would see this. I can increase, decrease memory. Processor, I have only 2. I cannot do anything with it. I'll have to shut down if I have to make any changes to this hard disk space. This is my place where I have stored my ISO image. Network, in case if you actually want to use the IP address of your local machine, you should always get into bridged mode, right, wherein you would get a similar IP address in the same range that you have connected to a Wi-Fi network, right? USB controller, sound card, auto detect, preset printer, display. And you have an option here if you want to change the power settings. Shared folders, if you want to actually create a shared folder between your actual operating system and the virtual operating system, this is where you configure. Please look out for our next video to create a shared folder between two different operating systems, right? I would be recording this shortly, and then it will be available for you on our YouTube channel. If you want to shut down or if you want to close it, you have an option out here. You can shut down, suspend, and restart. I don't want to restart. If you suspend, it would take you to a hibernate mode, and it is always easier to restart. So I always prefer to keep my system in a suspended mode. Shutdown will completely shut down, and then it'll take few minutes when you actually want to start using your operating system. So since this is the first time, I'm going to go ahead and then say shutdown, right? So let me say yes. It'll take a while, and our VM is shut down, and that means it is gone. If you want to start back again, double click on this VMware Workstation Player whenever you want to actually access it. Open your VMware Workstation Player. There you go. You have this Windows operating system. Click on that, and then you would get an option here stating play virtual machine, guest operating system that you have here, and you can always go back and then create more and more operating systems. Watch out for our next video to actually create a Ubuntu or a CentOS operating system using an image. I'll tell you how to download it and then work over it. Subscribe to our channel. Get onto Skillrary website, skillrary.com, and watch out for more and more courses on virtual or VMware concepts. Thank you guys. See you. Take care. Bye-bye.
If you'd like to see more videos like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.